Minecraft movie disaster. This is in reference to the massive reaction from audiences across the world to the long-anticipated Minecraft movie, specifically their massive reaction to the film in theaters. One famous catchphrases like chicken jockey appeared during the showing of the film. People throw their entire popcorn buckets at the theater screen in glee. Some not only throw food, but entire drinks, in reference to the water bucket release memes seen all over TikTok. I wonder where these come from. People simply want to reenact the meme where a low-wage employee is staring at you in awe and confusion as you do something incredibly heinous in front of a loving family of four. TikTok is running rampant with this challenge, and it seems to have sparked a life in the Minecraft meme community. Some in the comments also speculate the origins of this trend, believing it to have been started by the Minecraft movie marketing team themselves, as they all saw the negative attention they were receiving with the casting of Daniel Brooks and others, who many Minecrafters believed didn't truly represent the community. Not only that, they also poked fun at the way Jack Black was chosen as Steve, making the whole film have a raunchy feeling instead of a more serious gothic-like tone they could have taken, with some even recreating what they wanted the Minecraft movie to be, using AI. All this backlash and complaining, some theorize, led to the marketers of the film to put a meme-like spin on its premiere, making it more of an experience that you could enjoy with others rather than a serious movie that you actually cared to watch every detail of, leading to people taking it overboard and acting out exactly what TikTok told them to do, water bucket releasing in a full theater, and one person even being hit with a glass bottle with the mother freaking out. I feel bad for anyone who chose to sit in the front row without knowing about the viral clips. People are giving entire speeches at the beginning of the movie as well, something I have to say I've never seen before other than this guy.
Attention movie lovers, if you see my popcorn flying in the air, please don't be startled. Thank you.
Meaning that if their marketing team is really behind the chicken jockey trend, they really succeeded at being able to create a massive hype and control teenage brains, especially in the face of critics. Even their toys are being roasted for being so blatant, rightfully so. But they did a complete 360 on the film's perception, as people are starting to love it for how bad it is, although some genuinely seem to love it. Despite all the drama, another thing to know is that early rough 3D render of the film was also leaked. The entire film made its way online, but it looked cursed as the 3D effects were not finished yet, with many questioning where it came from. Could this have been another attempt to push the memeable aspect of the film, as it created another massive wave of memes? I guess it could have just been a Minecraft movie animator, but who knows? And why would they do this? Why release the unfinished early 3D Minecraft movie on your own? That, or they were hacked. Studio Gibli AI. Whatever comes out of Studio Ghibli is praised due to the hard work that went into not only the storytelling but also the animation, perfectly showcasing their art style down to every last detail, from Spirited Away to My Neighbor Totoro. So it was surprising to find out how easily AI was able to replicate it when ChatGPT 4.0 came out, generating high-quality Studio Ghibli-inspired designs of previously viral pictures or videos. People were quick to use the feature to their advantage, leading many in the art community to call them out, saying that they were being lazy and ripping off Hayao Miyazaki, blatantly stealing his unique art style by the push of a few buttons instead of actually sitting down and learning the skill. Many artists began saying that the barrier to entry was nothing now because of these tools. Non-artists could use it and compete with actual artists that sat down and took time and effort to learn the style of art they were trying to reproduce, saying that people who use AI to create art churn out a soulless piece of media, as it did not derive from a human being, as the lines between what was created by humans and what was created by an artificial intelligence starts to blur. Some theorize that artists will begin to suffer and will slowly die off, at least those that are not able to keep up with demand, as they could easily be replaced by AI in a few years if the advances keep going in the same trajectory. Interesting thing to note is that the White House would also participate in this trend, developing an image of a supposed illegal person being detained by ICE, this most likely being Tom Homan, border czar of the United States. Now, is this ethical? Can you use this ChatGPT feature and feel guilt-free? I mean, the generator already exists, and you will most likely continue to see the normalization of AI-generated images, but does this make it okay? Well, that's up to you. In 1872, a group of workers digging a hole near Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire hit something strange. Buried under several feet of clay, they found what looked like an egg, but not just any egg, a perfectly smooth jet black stone, covered in symbols no one could identify. This became known as the Mystery Stone, and more than 150 years later, no one really knows what it is, who made it, or why it was buried there. The stone itself is about 4 inches long, made of a type of quartzite not native to the area. That's already weird, but what makes it really fascinating is what's carved into it. Symbols of arrows, a moon, a teepee, an ear of corn, and what some say looks like an ancient face. Some people claim it's Native American, others think it's Masonic. A few even argue it's not from this continent at all, but here's where it gets more mysterious. There's a hole drilled straight through the top and bottom, perfectly clean, even by modern standards, and we're talking about a time when the best tools were hand cranked. Some researchers think it might have been done with a machine, which has led to theories ranging from secret societies to advanced lost civilizations. Mainstream archaeologists aren't impressed though. They've dismissed it as a 19th century hoax or a commemorative object made more recently than people actually think. But no one has ever definitively proven that, and there's no record of who buried it, why it was buried in clay, or how long it had been there. A contemporary source suggested that the stone commemorates a treaty between two tribes. Another writer later suggested that it is a thunderstone. With the somewhat limited understanding of the day, the letter said the thunderstones always present the appearance of having been machined or hand-worked. Frequently, they come from deep in the earth, embedded in lumps of clay, or even surrounded by solid rock or coral. In 1994, a borescope analysis of the stone's holes were performed. State archaeologist Richard Boisvert later suggested that the holes had the appearance of having been drilled by power tools from the 19th or 20th century. I've seen a number of holes bored in stone with technology that you would associate with prehistoric North America. There's a certain amount of unevenness, and this hole was extremely regular throughout. What we did not see was variations that would be consistent with something that was several hundred years old. Torsion field theory. There's a theory on the fringes of physics, one that's been buried, dismissed, rebranded, and still somehow it keeps showing up, a whisper beneath the surface of modern science and conspiracy. It's called torsion field theory, and depending on who you ask, it's either a misunderstanding, a breakthrough, or a pseudoscientific rabbit hole. Torsion fields come from an actual term in general relativity. In Einstein's theory, space can bend and stretch. That's what gravity is, but what if space could also twist, literally rotate on a point? That twist, or torsion, was explored in the 1920s by mathematician Lyu Caves, who extended Einstein's equations to allow for a spiraling distortion in space-time. The idea was mostly abandoned. Mainstream physics didn't find much use for it, but in the shadows of Cold War science, especially in Russia, that twist in space-time turned into something else entirely. Russian researchers in the late 20th century began experimenting with what they called torsion fields, invisible spiral-shaped energy fields allegedly generated by spinning objects, especially biological ones. According to this version of the theory, torsion fields could carry information, even consciousness, independent of electromagnetic energy. In other words, a type of subtle energy that could exist beyond our known physics. Sounds wild. It gets even stranger. Some researchers claim torsion fields could be used for faster than light communication, memory storage, and even healing. And yes, this is where it starts bleeding with metaphysics and where the Western scientific establishment largely checked out. But the claims didn't stop. Russian figures like Anatoly Akimov and Gennady Chipov continued to publish on torsion fields throughout the 1980s and 90s. Their papers described a fifth force of nature, one that could explain everything from ESP to gravity anomalies. They even proposed that torsion fields interacted with the vacuum of space, the zero-point field, creating a kind of invisible information web that surrounds us all. If that sounds like a quantum woo, you're not alone. Most physicists dismiss this entirely. There's no empirical evidence that torsion fields exist as described in these alternative models. They don't show up in reproducible experiments. They're not supported by quantum field theory. The math, when tested, doesn't hold up, and yet there's something about that idea that refuses to die. It shows up in obscure patents, in energy healing circles, in weird government research documents with half-redacted paragraphs, some connected to ancient knowledge, spinning tops, spirals in sacred architecture, and the ever-present vortex in mystical traditions. Torsion field theory isn't proven, it isn't accepted, it isn't even clearly defined, but it's there. Lyu Caves. Beneath the sleepy village of Xi'an in China's Xinjiang province lies one of the most puzzling mysteries archaeology has to offer, the Lyu Caves. Discovered completely by accident in 1992, when local farmers decided to drain what they thought was a bottomless pond, they found something no one expected, a massive hand-carved chamber buried beneath the surface, and that wasn't a one-off. Over time, 24 such chambers were uncovered, each cut deep into solid silt stone, with a ceiling high enough to fit a two-story house and walls marked with perfectly uniform chisel lines. The level of precision is honestly wild. There weren't rough-hewn caves carved by amateurs. They're engineered with an eerie consistency. Parallel grooves run across every surface, almost like an ancient code, or at least a signature from whoever made them. Some theories suggest these grooves were just from tools, but the fact they cover every inch of the walls, ceiling, and even the pillars raises more questions than answers. Why go to such lengths to create a space like this, only to seemingly abandon it? And here's where it gets even weirder. There are no historical records mentioning the construction of these caves. None. We're talking about a project that would have been thousands of workers and years to complete, and it wasn't even documented in Chinese history. No signs of habitation have ever been found inside. No bones, no tools, no inscriptions. It's like they were carved out with insane precision and forgotten, almost like they were never meant to be found. Some people have compared it to ancient versions of a data vault or a ritual space. Others lean hard into the lost civilization angle, suggesting that it's just one piece of a much larger puzzle we haven't found yet. Mainstream archaeology is still baffled, and there's no definitive answer as to who made the caves, how they did it, or how they were used. Celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg. On April 14, 1561, the sky over Nuremberg, Germany turned into something straight out of a science fiction movie, except this was centuries before the term even existed. Just after dawn, hundreds of witnesses claimed to see what they described as a celestial battle. The reports came in with strange consistency, black spheres, rods, and crosses flying through the sky, seemingly engaging in some kind of aerial conflict. People watched in shock as these objects clashed, darted across the sky, and eventually fell to the ground in clouds of smoke. What makes the story even weirder, a broadsheet, the 16th century version of news article, was actually printed about it, complete with a woodcut illustration of the scene. Now, here's the thing. This isn't some forgotten legend passed down by word of mouth. The broadsheet was published by Hans Glaser, a respected printer at the time, and it wasn't framed like a fairy tale. It was presented as news. Eyewitnesses weren't just a handful of townsfolk either. According to Glaser, the whole city saw it, and this was no quick flash in the sky. The event supposedly lasted for over an hour. After the battle, a large black spear-shaped object appeared, and then the whole thing ended with a crash and a plume of smoke just outside the city. So what exactly did the people of Nuremberg see? Skeptics argue it could have been nothing more than a rare atmospheric event, sundogs or light refractions messing with perceptions. Others chalk it up to religious symbolism, suggesting the woodcut was more of a moral warning than a news report. But then there are the strange takes that propose this to be the earliest recorded mass UFO sighting. Some even compare it to modern-day reports of UFO sightings like the Tic Tac and other aerial maneuvers that these objects make. We can't prove what happened in 1561, as there were no debris or solid evidence, just a centuries-old woodcut and a weirdly detailed account. Time Travel _0. In the early 2000s, a series of cryptic forum posts appeared under the username Time Travel _0, later revealed as the now infamous John Titor. He claimed to be a soldier from the year 2036, sent back in time to retrieve an old IBM 5100 computer of all things. At first, it sounded like typical internet weirdness, but something about it stuck. His messages weren't just sci-fi storytelling, they were dense, technical, and strangely convincing. Titor talked about time travel mechanics, paradoxes, and multiverse theory with a level of detail that got people wondering, what if he's not just making this up? What really kicked the mystery into overdrive was how specific he was. Teeter described his time machine as being installed in a 1967 Chevy and powered by two micro-singularities stabilized by a gravity sensor. It was just the right blend of real science and speculative tech to sound plausible if you squinted. He even included diagrams, but it wasn't all about tech. Teeter made predictions too: civil unrest in the US, a second civil war, a fragmented federal government, and even a global nuclear exchange. None of it happened on schedule, obviously, but that's where it gets clever. He claimed he was from a slightly different timeline, meaning discrepancies were expected. Skeptics dug in, and over the years, a lot of the mystery unraveled. IP traces, stylistic analysis, even suspected real-world identities have been proposed, some linking it back to a Florida-based entertainment lawyer and his brother. But no one has ever definitively proven who was behind it. Despite the holes, the Teeter saga refuses to die. Part internet folklore, part ARG, part philosophy on what it even means to move through time, it became a blueprint for future online myths. Rango Rango. On Easter Island, one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth, archaeologists found something even stranger than the iconic Moai statues. A script, not a carving, not cave art, a full-blown written language carved into wooden tablets. It's called Rango Rango, and to this day, no one has cracked it. What's weird is that there's no clear origin. The rest of Polynesia didn't have writing, so where did this come from? How did a tiny island in the middle of the Pacific, with limited resources and contact, develop something so complex, and why did it vanish without a trace? Rango Rango looks like something out of an alien language primer. The glyphs are arranged in a unique pattern called reverse boustrophedon. You read it one line left to right, then flip the tablet upside down and read the next. The symbols themselves depict humans, animals, tools, plants, but they're stylized in a way that feels symbolic, not literal. Experts have tried to decode it for over a century. Linguists, cryptographers, even AI models have taken a shot. Nothing has worked. And here's the kicker: only a few dozen authentic tablets exist, and are badly damaged or missing context, so even if we were even close, we might not have enough materials left to finish the puzzle. Some believe Rango Rango could be a form of proto-writing or memory aid, not quite a language, but more like a ceremonial code. Others think it was a last-ditch attempt to create a written record after European contact when the culture was collapsing, but then there are the more fringe ideas, that it's a remnant of some lost civilization, or that the islanders inherited it from an earlier people we know nothing about. It wouldn't be the first time history handed us something that didn't quite fit. What's eerie in this silence is that there's no oral tradition explaining Rango Rango. No one left notes about how to read it. It just exists like a message in a bottle from a civilization we almost understood and then forgot. Even with all our tech, all our tools, we still don't know what it says, and maybe that's what makes it so powerful. It's not just a mystery, it's a reminder that some stories are still locked away, waiting. The report from Iron Mountain. In the 1960s, a strange document began circulating among intellectual circles, a report claiming to be a top-secret study commissioned by the US government titled The Report from Iron Mountain. According to the text, a group of elite thinkers was gathered in an underground facility, the so-called Iron Mountain, to answer one question: what would happen if the world suddenly achieved a permanent peace? The conclusion: peace, they claimed, would be destabilizing. War, as horrifying as it is, was supposedly necessary for economic stability, social cohesion, and political control. That's where things get dark. The report reads like dystopian policy. It talks about the need for substitute institutions if war were ever phased out. Things like staged space races, fake threats from alien life, even perpetuating environmental crisis to keep people compliant and afraid. It suggests that war isn't just about conflict, it's the glue that holds modern civilization together. No wonder it caused a firestorm when it leaked in 1967. For years, people debated its authenticity. Was it real? A leaked government document accidentally published, a hoax? Or was it a warning in disguise? In 1972, writer Leonard Lewin came forward claiming he wrote it as satire, a political parody meant to expose the cold logic behind real-world policy think tanks. But here's the thing, even after the confession, not everyone bought it. Some argued the hoax story was just a cover, that it hit a little too close to the truth. that it was disinformation in reverse. Whether it was satire or strategy, the ideas in the report from Iron Mountain are chilling because they echo things we've actually seen: manufactured crisis, distraction politics, and wars that seem to go on just long enough to serve as someone's bottom line. It's a document that continues to resurface every few years, especially when world events start to feel curated. Maybe it was fiction, or maybe it was just a test to see how the public would react to something they weren't supposed to read. The Interdimensional UFO Theory. Most of the time when people talk about UFOs, the assumption is simple. They're aliens from space, piloting ships across light years to drop in on Earth for reasons. But there's another theory, one that's older, stranger, and maybe even harder to wrap your head around. It's the idea that UFOs aren't extraterrestrials, they're interdimensional. Instead of coming from another planet, what if these things are bleeding through from a parallel reality, a nearby dimension that we usually can't see or touch, but that sometimes overlaps with ours just enough to be noticed? This isn't just sci-fi either. It's been seriously discussed by people inside the UFO research community for decades. Physicist Jacques Vallée, for example, famously pushed back on the aliens and ships narrative. To him, the UFO phenomenon was more like a control system, something that's been interacting with human culture for centuries, always just on the edge of understanding. The strange thing is, the interdimensional angle fits a lot of the weirder cases, stories where UFOs blink in and out of existence, defy the laws of physics, or behave more like apparitions than craft. It also lines up with old folklore: fairies, sky spirits, jinn, beings that show up, mess with people's perception of time and space, and then vanish without a trace. Different names maybe, but the same phenomenon wearing a different mask. And yeah, it's out there, but it also solves a few problems the space travel theory doesn't. No need for impossible fuel or faster than light drives, just a thin veil between realities, a glitch in the simulation, or maybe even us, future humans, pinging back into their own past, disguised in symbols we still don't understand. Whatever they are, the interdimensional theory reminds us that the UFO mystery might not be about visitors from the stars, but something even closer, something already here. Zuckerberg and Mr Beast interview. Something about the Zuckerberg and Mr Beast interview on the Colin and Samir show felt off, not staged exactly, but curated, like it was less of a conversation and more of a demo, a high production glimpse into how Meta wants to be seen by the creator world. You've got the most powerful man in social media, the biggest YouTuber on the planet, and two of the most brand safe creators ever, all in one room. That's not a casual sit down, that's a message. Here's the theory. This wasn't about fixing Facebook video. It was about legitimizing Meta and creator spaces. It still doesn't fully control. YouTube owns video, TikTok owns a short form culture, and Meta, well, it's been struggling to keep up. So what better move than to sit down with Mr Beast, the poster child for platform agnostic success, and publicly agree with him on what needs to change. Zuckerberg doesn't just take feedback, he's taking notes on camera. That kind of optics makes Meta look flexible, innovative, creator-friendly, but only if you don't look too closely. And then there's Colin and Samir, normally loved for their deep dives and honest convos, but here, some fans are saying it felt like a softball PR play, like they traded their usual critical edginess for a front row seat to a historic interview. It's understandable, but it's also kind of revealing. When platforms like Meta step into creator spaces, even authentic voices can start to feel filtered. So maybe this wasn't about solving multilingual audio, maybe it was about reframing Meta as the platform that listens. Just as public opinion around AI privacy and algorithm control gets shakier, if that's the case, this interview wasn't just content, it was strategy, and the question becomes, are creators being elevated or recruited? Contelmoism. Contelmoism is a contemporary spiritual movement founded by Chris Contelmo, an American biochemist born on June 19, 1962 in Oregon. In 2013, Contelmo was diagnosed with brain cancer and claimed to have cured himself by vaping dimethyltryptamine, DMT, a powerful hallucinogenic compound. Building on his experiences, Contelmo established Contelmoism, a movement centered around the belief that DMT could unlock higher states of consciousness and offer therapeutic benefits. He promoted his ideas through online forums, particularly Reddit, where he gained a following by engaging with users and sharing his experiences. Contelmoism's core tenets include DMT as a sacrament, viewing DMT as a pathway to divine insight and healing, alternative health practices advocating for methods like sun gazing, and challenging established scientific principles, apocalyptic predictions, proposing theories about extraterrestrial threats and upcoming apocalyptic events, messianic claims. Contelmo positioned himself as a messianic figure within the movement. Critics viewed Contelmo's teachings as pseudoscientific, expressing concerns about the promotion of unverified health practices and potential exploitation of vulnerable individuals. On November 24, 2019, Contelmo was found deceased on a hiking trail in Los Angeles County, California, with his death was ruled a suicide. While Contelmoism did not achieve widespread acceptance, it sparked discussions about the intersection of science, spirituality, and the use of psychedelics in exploring consciousness and treating cancer. Holomic Brain. What if I told you your brain might not store memories like files in a cabinet, but more like a hologram? Yeah, a hologram. Those strange 3D images that seem to float in midair and shift when you move around them. Here's the wild part. Every tiny piece of a hologram contains the entire image, and that's the foundation of something called the Holomic Brain Theory, one of the most mind-bending and fringe explanations of how your brain might actually work. The theory comes from neuroscientist Carl Pribram, who teamed up with quantum physicist David Bohm. Pribram noticed something strange when studying the brain. If parts of it were damaged, people didn't necessarily lose whole memories. It was like the information was spread out, not stuck in one isolated spot. That observation didn't fit the traditional file cabinet model of memory. Instead, it looked more like memory was distributed throughout the entire brain, which reminded him of how holograms store information. So Pribram ran with that idea. He suggested the brain processes information using wave interference patterns, the same kind that creates holograms. According to this model, when you recall a memory, you're not pulling a static file from some fixed location. You're reconstructing a whole picture from overlapping waves spread across your entire brain. Even if parts of the brain are damaged, the whole image can still be recovered, just fuzzier, like a damaged hologram, still showing the full picture. That's when David Bohm took it even deeper. Bohm believed the entire universe might be holographic, that what we see and experience is just a projection from a deeper hidden layer of reality he called the implicate order. Pribram thought maybe the brain was tapping into that. Maybe consciousness itself isn't just locked in our skulls, but maybe part of a larger field, a holographic matrix of sorts, where information is everywhere and nowhere at once. Now, this isn't mainstream neuroscience. Most scientists see this as metaphorical, a cool model, but not something proven. Still, the Holomic Brain Theory asks a chillingly provocative question. What if consciousness isn't a product of the brain, but more of a pattern that the brain tunes into, like a radio picking up a signal that was already there? Makes you wonder, if memory isn't stored inside your head in one neat place, then where is it? And who or what is doing the remembering? Flojistin theory. Before we knew what oxygen was, before chemistry looked anything like it does today, scientists in the 17th and 18th century believed in something called phlogiston. It was an invisible, weightless substance that supposedly lived inside anything that could burn. According to the theory, when something caught fire, it wasn't reacting with air, it was releasing phlogiston into the atmosphere, and when the flame went out, that meant the object had no more phlogiston left to give. It sounds ridiculous now, but back then, it was considered cutting-edge science. The theory had its roots in trying to explain combustion, rust, and even respiration, all through a single idea. Burning wood, phlogiston escapes. Metal rusting, same thing, it's just a slow release. People even believed air could get saturated with phlogiston, which is why a candle would eventually go out in a sealed jar. It explained just enough to make sense, but not quite enough to be right. And here's where it gets wild. Phlogiston was believed to have negative weight, so when scientists noticed that some metals get heavier after burning, like when iron turns to rust, they didn't see this as proof that the theory was wrong. They doubled down, claiming phlogiston must have anti-mass, and its absence actually made things heavier. That's how committed they were to this invincible substance. They bent reality to make it fit. took decades and the work of people like Antoine Lavoisier to finally overturn the theory. He introduced the idea of oxygen and oxidization, showing through repeatable experiments that combustion wasn't about phlogiston leaving, but oxygen entering. This moment, when Lavoisier essentially killed phlogiston, marks the birth of modern chemistry. But here's the kicker: phlogiston wasn't fringe, it was mainstream. It was taught, accepted, and defended for over 100 years. So what does that say about us now? That sometimes even the smartest people can follow a flawed idea if it explains just enough to be convincing. That we might be carrying our own modern version of phlogiston, ideas we're certain are true, until something comes along and completely rewrites the rules. Fake diploma forum spammer. Somewhere in the forgotten corners of the internet, buried deep in threads no one reads anymore, there's a presence. They call it the fake diploma forum spammer. It started sometime in the early 2000s. Out of nowhere, forums across the internet, tech forums, cooking forums, car enthusiast boards, even role-playing sites began receiving strange, repetitive messages, posts about buying fake diplomas, fake degrees, fake certificates. At first it looked like basic spam, but the scale wasn't normal. We're talking about thousands of posts across hundreds of forums over decades. Some users started noticing patterns, the same phrases, always slightly tweaked, the same formatting quirks, sometimes in broken English, other times nearly perfect. There were links, yes, but often the links were dead. Sometimes they didn't even go anywhere at all. And then the weird part, there were no clear motives, no successful marketing funnel, no monetization, just the endless spam, like someone or something was just doing it for the sake of doing it. Posters were getting banned instantly, IPs were blacklisted, entire accounts wiped, and then days later, new ones appeared. The spam came back. Same structure, same message, different forum. Some people thought it was a bot gone rogue, left running unattended for years. Others believed it was a human, part of the bizarre psychological operation or performance art piece. A few theorists wondered if it was a honeypot for scraping user data or a signal, something like digital graffiti used to mark or track dead forums. And yet, there was never a reveal, never a definitive source. That is until Diploma 001. This user was found to advertise fake degrees on multiple forums in Mandarin. An interesting aspect, as many people don't know, but fake degrees are a popular thing in China and many students try to buy them in order to avoid the stress of the rigorous college system, opening multiple job offers and opportunities that they wouldn't have had before. Explaining why these might show up in multiple forums, because they're trying to spread it all across the internet, trying to get as much money as possible. Some speculating that they're trying to enter the Western market and try to sell them fake diplomas as well, or fake degrees.